Good evening, Dr. L. Teddy. How are you, sir?
I'm great, my love. How are you?
Listen, I am here. Listen, y'all. This how much I know we love y'all because we are here by hook and by crook. We both have a lot that we trying to get done, but we are getting it done. We are here for the
We
people.
are here.
We are here, but we had some things we wanted to talk to y'all about. We are here for the people.
You got listen. Gotta give the people what they want. You know what I'm saying? Got to give the people. Got to give
Got to
them
give
what
the people what they want. Isn't that a song?
it is. It is.
Give the people what they want. So
Hmm.
how's your week been? How's everything going before we jump into the
Just
the things that we need
it,
to discuss today?
it's the middle of the fall, so we are all enthralled in just being busy.
Yeah, it's homecoming season and both of
Hmm.
us, well, you were pseudo HBCU. You were in the marching 100, but you didn't
I
graduate
did take
from
one
a
class
HBCU.
there. I
I
did
said
not.
you pseudo. But you have the HBCU experience because you were on the band. So you understand homecoming and you get it. You get it. You get the homecoming moment, right?
Hmm.
Because you were on the band. All right, so let's get ready to get this party started. What's up, Cams? You better go ahead. Thank you for hitting that like button as you walked in the door. Appreciate you, sir. Appreciate you being here.
Hey,
Um,
Cam.
I'm gonna pop this over to my IG real quick, and we're gonna jump in. So we got a couple of things we want to talk about. Talk about today. Um, what's up, Ebs? Hey, Lady Libra. How are you? How's everybody doing? So first of all, we want to talk about there's an article that I saw a headline for, and I wanted to talk about it because it's a very misleading article, in my opinion. Um, it is about HBCUs and promises made to HBCUs. So let me just jump into it. Normally, I have the links before we even get started, but I'm being honest. I'm gonna have to double back and put the link in. But let's just start with this article. Um, this is coming from Newsweek. This article is coming from Newsweek, and it is dated October the 5th. So this is a few weeks ago. Our articles are normally, right on point, but it's a couple of weeks ago. But let me just read you guys this. So the headline said HBCU funding falls from 45 billion to 2 billion under latest Biden spending plan. But that is a very misleading headline. And the reason why it's a misleading headline is because it's not actual funding that was given, it is funding that was promised. And there's a big difference. So let me read you a little bit of this article, and then we can just again, we just want to touch base on this. I just wanted to clear some things up. Historically black colleges and universities that were looking forward to a 45 billion in fund looking forward to $45 billion in funding may be faced with just 2 billion under the Biden administration's multi-trillion dollar spending plan as a result of democratic infighting, the Associated Press is reporting. The $3.5 trillion bill was set to include 45 billion for HBCUs and other minority serving institutions. But the latest iteration of the bill allots only 2 billion for educational programs and infrastructures of HBCUs. That amount could even be reduced to competitive grant funding instead of direct funding to the schools. Harry L. Williams, president of the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, which represents public HBCU, stressed the importance of the funding and the needs the original funding could have helped fulfill. He said black colleges have a unique history and needs the financial challenges. I don't know if that's what they meant to say. They often struggle with funding for upgrading their campuses, updating their research programs, providing essential materials, hiring teachers, and attracting new potential students. So, again, the article is misleading because it was it was written almost as if to say last year HBCUs got this amount of money and under Biden they're only going to get this amount of money. But the reality is this is money that was promised, but because of the things that happen when you look at a budget and you slash and burn, it was reduced. Now that is a significant reduction. Your views, Dr. El Teddy, your views on it.
Um,
Pause there. I've been talking a lot. I'm a pause.
I hate that it was reworded because I do think that Biden and Harris do owe us some answers, but not in the manner and method with which this is worded. Like you said, it makes it seem like they're taking away money. They're not taking away money. However, the money that they promised has dwindled and diminished. And you know that these schools and institutions need these resources. And if you can't come and fringe your whole campaign on minorities coming out to vote, specifically black people coming out to vote, and black people do everything you asked of them. They came out and voted in the presidential election. They came out and voted again and won you the Senate seats that you asked for. And every single thing that black people and other people of color have been asked to do, they did. And when it comes time for you and your administration to hold up your end of the bargain, now it's oh, well, see, I thought I could get the 45, but it's gonna be more like 2. That would be like him losing, and us black people said, well, we thought we was gonna come out and we thought we was gonna, but it just didn't work out that way. We didn't have enough. We didn't feel like it was important enough for us to come out and vote for you this time. You see what I'm saying? You would have been looking at us crazy. And so now we have every right to look at you crazy, especially you, Kamala Harris, who should be screaming from the rooftops as a graduate of an HBCU. You are a testament to what HBCUs and these institutions can produce and why we should be putting more money into them. But you ain't saying nothing. You ain't screaming from the rooftops. You ain't out here, screaming holy hell for anything. And this is not the first, second, third, or fourth time, Kamala Harris, that there have been situations that specifically speak to you, your experience, and how you got to where you are as the vice president of these yet to be United States of America, and you've been silent on them. And just to say, and the only time we hear from you is when somebody has to damn near accost you on the side of the road, shove a mic in your face and say, how do you feel about this? And it shouldn't have to be that. You should be on the floor of somewhere screaming from the rooftops. I should see you on all of the Sunday morning shows. But you ain't doing none of that. I'm sorry. I had a little tantrum there. Excuse me.
I asked you before we got started. I said, I didn't even think this was gonna be the sugar spike one. I didn't. I asked you. We had a conversation about this, bro. This isn't even the one.
We absolutely had a whole conversation. Oh my God.
Goodness.
We had a whole conversation about this. Oh.
Anyway. But I agree with I'm a ditto everything you said, especially the part about the fact that, Kamala Harris is a HBCU grad, and you would think that but the reality of the situation is we know how these things go. I'm not making an excuse. I'm just saying politics is what it is. They start off high, they slash and burn, they slash and burn, they slash and burn, to the point where eventually there's just nothing left. I don't know.
I mean, this isn't even a tenth of what they promised. It's not even a tenth.
Yeah. Well, let's get to this next article because it might get worse.
Yeah. The article that talks about the less than 10% that we're reduced to.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I did read, I perused through it, and there is I know it's a long article, and we ain't really get the chance. But I found this section that was really that will highlight.
Do you read it then? Do you have it from you? All right.
I do.
That you want to highlight.
Title of this article is Biden plan pits Hispanic serving colleges against HBCUs. So and this is just to give some people edification. Black schools colleges and universities are called HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. Hispanic colleges are called HSIs, or Hispanic Serving Institutions. So
Mm,
that's the acronym that they have for
okay.
schools that center and highlight are centered around Hispanic students. So they're called Hispanic Serving Institutions, or HSIs. You'll
Got
see that acronym in the article. It says President Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan is setting up a conflict between Hispanic serving colleges and historically black institutions, with with both vying for the same resources to address inequities for underserved populations. HBCUs have built a collective brand, getting renewed presidential attention since the Trump administration, and using their political clout to push Congress for money to upgrade aging campuses they say have long been underfunded by the federal government. Hispanic serving institutions, which number more than 5 times as many across the U.S. as the approximately 100 HBCUs, say their institutions have also been overlooked. For Latino education groups, leveraging their growing representation is part of the politics. The head of the education department is Latino, and the latest census data has removed any doubt about the potential clout of the community. The way House Democrats wrote the multi trillion-dollar reconciliation measure, which would require minority serving institutions to compete for billions of dollars, has also mobilized Latino higher education advocates. They are wielding influence in Congress, even at the risk of alienating HBCU advocates who are better known on Capitol Hill. Quote, it's a resource question, end quote, said Representative Raul Grijalva, Democrat of Arizona, a co-chair of the Congressional Hispanic Serving Institutions Caucus, who supports adding more money to the grants, though Democrats are looking to pare down the size of the bill. We should not be getting into robbing Peter to pay Paul, or fighting over an amount that doesn't satisfy the needs of respective groups of people. And it goes on and on and on, and it talks about certain bills that both the HBCUs want and the HSIs want. But I found one paragraph that summarized a lot of what this means. It says um, HACU, and HACU stands for, I saw that. Hold on. It's a it's the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. Okay. HACU, the most prominent lobbying group for HSIs, wants lawmakers supporting the HBCU infrastructure legislation to change the bill to allot 39% for HSIs, the biggest slice of the bill, and leave 33% for HBCUs. The group says this would be the same breakdown as the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplement Appropriations Act mandatory funding formula. However, the bill's proposed formula will provide over 42% for HBCUs and only 18% for HSIs. So
Mm.
what we really have going on here is, when they muddled it down from the 45 billion to the between 2 and 3 billion, now we have these institutions that should be on the same side, should be, holding
But
hands.
now we're all in the same pot fighting for the same crumbs.
Exactly. So now we left with crumbs, and now everybody said, "Oh, well, we got more representation. We got more schools. We've been here longer. We got more clout in Congress." Because parts of the article goes into how members of the
The
HBCU
lobbying.
have bigger clout in Congress, but the Hispanics are saying, "Well, we represent a larger minority population, and the
Oh,
census told us that y'all cannot ignore us," and so it's that kind of a fight. Um, yeah, it's that kind of a fight. I hate that we're at this point.
and that's where it is. It's like it's like they put, if it's almost, and that's why I know people have argued with me about this, but that is why I do not like when people just say people of color and they lump everybody together, because then we deal with these problems. Because the reality of the situation is, just because we are all people of color, it does not mean that we are all the same. And so now both of these important institutions are getting the short end of the stick, because y'all think it's easy to just make it a one size fits all, and we're just gonna lump everybody together, and everybody is a POC, and everybody's experience isn't the same, and everybody's needs aren't the same. And so the already small pot is being divided even for, exactly. I hate that term. I hate people of color. I hate that term POC. I just do. And this is one of the examples of why it's not good practice. Not for us, it's not. Now it makes it easier for other people who want to say, hey, I take care of,
Mm,
the POCs. You know what
mm.
I'm saying?
I listen. This is going to get ugly. I could see this getting ugly. I could see this. And what you're going to have is you're going to have the left over here fighting amongst each other while the right is over there looking at them like this.
Facts. Because notice in that first article, it said because that the money was reduced because of Democratic, infighting. It didn't say nothing about the Republican caucus. It didn't say anything about the Republican caucus. It said because of Democratic infighting is the reason why the money was reduced. And so again, this is what we do. Listen, we're not gonna turn this into a politics of it all, but this is what we do, you know.
And,
We just continue to divide up the same pot. We just
and I feel like this type of politics that they're playing with institutions of higher learning is going to cause black people to fall on the short end of the stick. You already know. Look at how they wrote in the article that there are only about 100 HBCUs, but there are 4 or 5 times as many HSIs. So as to say, we deserve more. This is going to get ugly, and it's going to come at the behest of the HBCUs. I'm telling you. We already, if we just really want to call ourselves to the carpet and unpack everything, we already, in terms of giving back, we already fall short in even how some of our alumni don't give back as much sometimes as other institutions, be they PWIs, HSIs, or whatever you want to call it. And so that, coupled with no help from the feds.
Well, we'll keep our eye on that one. Y'all know how we do. If there's a follow up to give, we will give the follow up. Now, here's the part of the this is our title. Our title was our talented and give, well, I put tag. Our tag program's outdated, right? So this conversation is going to come out of an article. Now, this is a student opinion article. So I want to be clear to let you know that this is an opinion piece. But this is coming out of the New York Times. This is dated. Where is my date? I don't see the date, but I'll let you guys know because I can't find it from right now. Right now, I can't find it. But this is, should we eliminate gifted and talented programs? So if you didn't know what TAG was when I put it in the title, that's talented and gifted. This article says gifted and talented, but every school district, I'm going to go out on the limb and say every school district has some form of a talented and gifted program, whether it is in the form of an AP program or an IB program or just a specific talented and gifted tag. There is some level of identifying students that are talented and gifted as it relates to academia. No, that's not just academics. Okay. So let me read you guys a little bit of this. Okay. Have you ever attended a school? Wait a minute. Hold on. Oh, do you think talented and gifted programs should be eliminated to promote equality and fairness and to help desegregate public schools? Or do you think these programs play a positive role in a public school system because they challenge students and offer opportunities for accelerated learning? In de Blasio to phase out New York City Gifted and Talented Programs, Aliza Shapiro writes, Mayor de Blasio on Friday unveiled a plan to overhaul talented and gifted education in New York City elementary schools, calling for sweeping changes to a highly selective program that has been widely criticized for exacerbating segregation in the nation's largest school system. Under de Blasio's plan released, he has just 3 months left in office, so that already lets you know that's a mess to start. So you're gonna introduce something this major and you only have 3 months left, but okay. Um, Elementary school students who are currently enrolled in tag classes would become the final cohort in the existing program. The system will be replaced by a program that offers the possibility of accelerated learning to students in the later years of elementary school. And the test given to kindergarten students to screen for the gifted program already suspended in part because of the city's advisory school board refused to renew it last year. It would be permanently ended. I'm gonna read a few more paragraphs and then I'll pause for El Teddy to have his sugar spike. The mayor's action attempts to address what the city has known for decades. Its gifted and talented program has contributed, Lord, to racially segregated classrooms and schools for thousands of school city students citywide. Throughout the 70% of the roughly 1 million public school students in New York are Black and Latino, about 75% of the roughly 16,000 students are gifted. Let me read that one more time. Through though about 70% of the roughly 1 million public school students in New York are Black and Latino, only about 75% of the roughly 16,000 students in the gifted elementary school classes are white or Asian. For years, rising kindergarten students have gained access to the programs via a high stakes exam that some families pay tutors to help their children prepare for. I'm gonna pause right there and I'll let you piece it in.
Here's what's happening. Here is what is going on, okay? Because, and this is something, this is why, and really be knows that I spent a lot of time um teaching teachers how to teach and being down at the district level, providing instruction to educators and in curriculum. I would do advanced studies, professional developments for teachers who taught advanced studies. And one of the major issues that we have in education is there's a vacuum in terms of having effective education for Black students and other minorities. The problem is our education system is just as whitewashed and just as catered to white people as any other institution. And because of that fact, when they're choosing to educate children, they're always doing it in the perspective that is amenable to Caucasian students and white students. Everything is picked to where it is advantageous to sing their side of it. Let's not also talk about the part where a lot of white parents have the money to which they can go out and hire their own child psychologists that will, finagle IQ tests so as to get their child put in these programs. And what happens is, even if a child may not necessarily be at that academic level when they get in the program because they were just thrown in there by their parents, because they are surrounded with this enriched program that can nurture them and cater to their needs and cater to their strengths, actually, they end up doing better. Let's be clear, and I've talked about this a lot on this channel and on my own personal channel. When you talk about gifted and talented, which is a subsection of special education, it is the antithesis of the lower functioning part of the special ed. Meaning, if a child gets an IEP, the IEP only talks about everything that the child is weak in and how you're going to support that child's weaknesses and what you're going to do to remediate them and, accommodate those weaknesses. If a child is gifted, they get an EP, and they're not even allowed to write down on there or address a weakness. You're not even allowed to put a weakness on there. You can only write their strengths on there and talk about how you are going to promote their strength. And I'm saying that for a reason. The reason I'm saying that is this: if you're going to get rid of these programs, please be clear. That's not going to get rid of the racial divide and problems that you have in the state of New York. What you're going to have happen is the needs of students, especially minority students, is going to not be met. Because a lot of times, if you come from an area, your parents don't have that kind of money, the only mechanism you have to be afforded some type of enrichment at your level is a gifted and talented program at your local high school and or elementary school or middle school. And I just fear that if you take that away, so many students, even though it's not a good ratio, but so many of those students that need that are not going to have that, and they're going to be stuck in a classroom where they're going to be underserved. And when a child is underserved and bored and the stuff is beneath them, they act out. And that's going to present a problem inside the classroom. So just knowing that this is going to create more problems, and this is what happens when you have people in charge of education that know nothing about education.
So for me, everything you just said, I'm sorry.
States. You know this is going to roll out in other states. You knew if it hasn't already.
So everything you just said is valid. Here's my piece of it. Once again, we are throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Does there need to be a better way of identifying talented and gifted students? Absolutely. The numbers are, I mean, the numbers I read you are clear. There's some disproportion here. But to say we're going to eliminate the program is not the answer. Saying we're going to revamp and figure out how to fix who and how we identify the students and which students are identified. Now, I will say this. Let me read a little bit more of the article so that we can get a little bit more, because it does say that what they're going to do is, instead of an admissions exam, the city will evaluate all rising third graders using past work and input them from teachers to determine whether they need higher level instruction in specific subject areas for one or two periods a day. So here's my problem with that idea. You're going to look at the third grader and you're going to look at the totality of what they've done for the last 3 years, and you're going to take teacher recommendations, right? That's what we're doing here.
Which is the wrong answer.
Again, right. That is the wrong answer, because again, we are looking at subjective data. Because we're looking at schools all over the city. So what, at the end of the year, all third grade teachers are going to be required to do what? Do letters of recommendation? Like, what is it that we're going to be required to do?
Let's be clear. You talked about the subjectivity of it. You're going to have little Tom over here versus Jabari over here, who have the same actions, same behaviors, and same intellectual level, but little Tom is going to be seen as eccentric, whereas Jabari over here is going to be seen as, oh, he's a bad student. One's going to end up being tested for gifted, one's going to be given an IEP. And they end up being the exact same students, emanating the same behaviors, having the same intellectual level, but because of subjectivity, because of biases, because of profiling, this is just, go ahead, really, because
So I'm gonna read a couple of comments from the chat. And once again, if you are listening to this podcast over on Apple or Google Play, you can always join the live conversation. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification bell, you will know when we're going live, and you can join us here in the chat. But Cam says, I acted out until I was placed in tag. You have to mentally stimulate these children. The loss of the program is going to be detrimental to positive educational outcomes. To T Lounge says, she added Cams and said, they almost put me in special education until my parents changed my school and a teacher there figured out I needed to be in tag. Thank God for
Mhm.
Miss Anderson. And so
I would-
again, we're
the only
throwing the baby out with the bathwater because the good value of a tag program far outweighs if you get the selection process right. The program isn't the problem, the selection process is.
exactly. I ended up in gifted because in the gifted program in my county because I was in elementary school and it was a whole racial thing. And this lady told my grandmother that I needed to be in special education and I needed speech classes and everything. And my grandmother said, "Excuse me, give him an IQ test." And when they said, she said, "Sure, we'll give him an IQ test." And they gave me an IQ test. I scored 143, and she was forced to put me in gift and was so angry about it. And everything went from there. But it was because it was somebody looking at me and said, "Oh, well," and it's just like what you said, really. This is going to be so detrimental. They need to just revamp how they look at the selection process, like you said. And then even after that, what are they doing to cultivate those students even once they get there?
Absolutely. And I think this also goes back to, and this goes back to what you were saying before, what you were doing in your prior job, and something that I'm kind of looking at trying to get into now. We me and you have talked offline. A lot of this goes into teacher training because there's a thin line between, as we've seen three examples in this one setting here, there's a thin line between what a teacher sees as a child that has special needs and what a teacher sees as a child that is gifted. It's a thin line. And some of it is ignorance, yes. Some of it is just training. Some of it is not being able to identify the behaviors. Like you said, what makes it eccentric when Billy does it, but makes it obnoxious and disruptive to the class when Jabari does it? And some of that is ignorance. We know
Mhm.
some of it is, racism. We're going to just call a spade a spade. But some of it is ignorance because I've seen it with black teachers doing it to black students.
Mhm.
You know,
That's true.
and I've had to have that conversation with teachers and say, wait a minute, when he's in my class or when she's in my class, X, Y, and Z happens. Oh, well, what are you doing? Well, I'm doing A, B, and C. And I'm not saying that I'm the perfect teacher because Lord knows I'm not. But sometimes it is just about how you how you react to the kids and what you do with the kids versus having that preconceived idea or notion of what it is. Now, and don't make me go back down the road of Teach for
Preconceived
America.
notions about a
Don't
teacher.
make me go back down the
You
road
know,
of
I don't
Teach for
like so and so.
America.
You got so and so on your schedule. Oh, let
Right.
me take you by him. And I'll be looking at them like, "Don't tell me nothing. I'll find
I
out.
don't right. Don't tell me nothing about my
I'll
kids.
find out. Don't
Because
worry."
again, what they do for you and what they do for me and what they did last year. Because let's be clear, kids just like us, they grow, they change, they evolve, they mature. But again, what they do with you. Well, hello, Mariah Whitney, Celine, Janet,
Hey,
Madonna.
Mariah Whitney. Hey, boo.
Right, we are absolutely burnt out already. You ain't listen. I had that conversation today with somebody. I feel
Mariah Whitney is an educator as
I
well.
know, I know. I feel
Middle
like
school.
it's March
You
and
still
it
at the
ain't
middle school, right, Mariah Whitney?
what happened? Say that again.
No, I was asking Mariah Whitney if they still at the middle school. They'll
A
tell us.
lot of us are scared to manage the class. Listen, that's another conversation for another day, child. I know what you're saying, though, Mariah Whitney. I know what you're saying. But yeah, I was just having this conversation again offline, today that it just feels like March. Like we ain't even out of the first quarter yet. We just did progress reports, and it feels like March. Man, my God.
Hello?
Just listen, I don't know what. Listen, somebody is getting ready to get a PhD studying the effects that COVID had on our students
I
for the
tell
last
you.
year and a half. Because let me tell you, but that's another conversation for another day. But yeah, I just feel like and like you said, El Teddy, it will be something that will set a trend and will move through school systems. Because what we do know, any of us who have worked in education, what we know is that's all they do. Somebody writes a dissertation and they turn it into a book and it becomes the hottest thing. And every school district is trying to implement it, adopt it. They're going to bring the person in to do training for their staff. And everybody has their, and then 2 years later, we've abandoned that and we're moving on to the next tagline or tag word, and so you're right. Somebody's going to say, hey, this is a great idea. I do think, because again, and here's where Blasio, and I don't have any experience with Blasio. I don't live in New York, but here's where Blasio is pissing me off with this. You don't implement something this major when you know you can't be there to follow through. If you were going to do this, then this is what you should have done at the beginning of your administration, so that you could put the right people in place to implement your vision. I might not agree with his vision, but you need to put the right people in place to implement what your vision is. For you to drop something like that on the next administration, that's not fair. And it's not going to turn out well.
Listen, I this whole situation is a recipe for disaster.
Facts,
I
on paper, facts.
I would much more say we need reform in talented and gifted programs. If we want to have that conversation, absolutely. We
Absolutely.
definitely need to have that. If you want to talk about, like you said, really be reforms or reformations in the selection process, let's talk about that. And I'm even on the opposite side of the spectrum with that, because I don't know if they do it in your area, really be, but I know down where I'm from, they had we had regular gifted, and then we had what we call Plan B gifted, where if you didn't have the 130 IQ score, if you were a minority and you had, I think it was 112, and got a teacher recommendation, they would allow you in the gifted program. And what ended up happening is, and that was their attempt um, to play with the numbers, and so it could give the appearance of having more minority students in these programs. The problem with that is you ended up having students that came into the program that couldn't handle the material. A child at 112 IQ is not the same as a child with 130. Let's be clear, a child at 112 and a child at 115 are two very different students. So we can talk about that, but talking about eliminating them, and I'm gonna tell you. Let me hold on. Since we got a couple minutes, let me tell you how this probably started. Let me tell you how this started. If I'm just a betting man, this is how the story went. Y'all want to know how the story really went? Here's the story of a man named Brady.
Well, here's how it started.
Here's what probably happened. Some white kid whose mom and dad has money. All of their friends was in the talented and gifted program. They wanted to be in so they could be with all their friends. They didn't have the intellectual fortitude and wherewithal to do it. And their money couldn't get them in because you needed certain scores to get in. And so they went and complained to mom and dad. Mom and dad know people of influence and positions of power down there to the education system in New York. A higher up talked to a higher up who talked to a higher up. Yeah, we need to get rid of this because this little child who feel like they were slighted and really weren't slighted, but because their parents got money and they're of the right complexion, now we need to get rid of gifted and talented. I'm telling you that's what happened, or some iteration of that. I'm just telling you that's what happened. I'm just saying. Just saying. I'm just saying. Let me see what the people saying in the chat, because I know they are losing their minds in the chat. I'd have lost my mind.
Yeah, I mean, and Mariah Whitney brings up a good point too. But there are programs. Again, it may not be the official talented and gifted program, but there are programs where students do have access to a rigorous curriculum. Like I said, I know AP. I can only speak from my experience in my district. I know the AP program. I know the IB program. Those are kids that are identified not necessarily based on an IQ test, but they are identified and they do have access to. And if they can't hang, then they just don't come back the next year. But it's not a program where they're pulled out and it's a track. So
Mm-hmm.
so there are, most school districts do have allow students to have access to a rigorous
but a lot of those things come with secondary education, with middle school and high school, and I know in a lot of areas, most of the talented and gifted, a lot of money is spent in the elementary areas because they really are trying to build the academic capacity of those students early on so that
Right.
they can get in those IB programs and
Right.
AP programs and pre-AP programs and things like that. So it's a sad day when we're in the education system and we got to talk at one point about HBCUs and HSIs fighting for money, and now we're talking about getting rid of talented and gifted
Right.
programs. What are you doing, Mr. Cardona?
The Tea Lounge, I like to hear that. That's part of why we're here. That's part of why we do what we do. The Tea Lounge says, I'm honestly excuse me, y'all, I'm tongue tied all day today, and need to reach out to my city council friend. And Tea Lounge lives in New York. I'm not doxing
I
her,
believe she
but
was
that's
there.
why she said she reaching out
Oh,
to her people. Please do. That's part of why we do this. To
yeah.
bring awareness, and hopefully that awareness will move to action, because again, we can't do it by ourselves on the education side. We cannot do it by ourselves, and we do need the help of the community. We do need help of parents. We do need help of people who are other stakeholders who are saying, listen, that's not a good idea. I don't like it. And again, it's not the program that's the problem. It's the selection process that I see being the problem. So we have a few more minutes, y'all. Y'all know we give y'all a good solid hour over here to the teacher project. Do we want to talk about what you want? Which one? Which one you want to do? You want to talk about? Do we want to talk about the alternative to the Holocaust, or do we want to talk about the Dr. Dre students? Which one you want?
You know what? We got a couple minutes. We can talk about both of them. We got about 20 good minutes left. We can go ahead and since we're already spiking now. I started off the I always get the spike, so we can go ahead and start off. Go
All
ahead.
right. Well, let's talk about this one. So this one comes from the good old state of Texas. It's
Oh yeah,
always
this is your
Texas or
sugar spike.
Florida. It's
This is
always
your sugar
Texas
spike.
or Florida.
Leave my state alone.
Right. I'm gonna read this last comment and then we'll get into this because Mariah Carey's an educator, so I want to get her comment. What's up, peace, love? Hey, my issue is that if I'm teaching a rigorous curriculum and really pushing the kids, don't come to me saying it's too much. We have to prep kids to engage in productive struggle, perseverance, and grit. I know that's right.
Listen, Mariah Whitney, you gotta come on. You gotta come up with us one time. We can have a whole conversation. You ain't gotta come on screen.
Yeah, you don't have to come on screen, but I would love for you to join the conversation because over here, you don't be trolling. You don't be trolling over here. All right. So this is El Teddy, state of Texas, honey. Texas and Florida belong to El Teddy.
Hmm.
Texas and Florida belong to El Teddy. All right. This is in the Guardian, and this is from October the 19th, 2021. So this is pretty recent. Texas schools are being told to teach opposing views of the Holocaust. I've been trying to imagine what Gina Petey could have been thinking when on October the 8th, she informed a group of South Lake, Texas elementary school teachers that if their classroom libraries included books about the Holocaust, students should also be steered towards books with opposing views. The executive director for curriculum and instruction for the Carroll Independent School District, Petey, later explained that she was simply helping her staff comply with Texas House Bill 3979, signed into law on September the 1st by Governor Greg Abbott. The ruling prohibits educators from discussing controversial, historic, social, or political issues. If these subjects do arise, HB 3979 mandates that teachers explore such issues from diverse to contending perspectives without giving deference to any one perspective. Petey's speech was secretly recorded by one of the training session attendees. On the tape, one can hear the bewildered protest that greeted her directive. When a teacher demanded to know how was one supposed to have an opposed view of the Holocaust, Petey replied, "Believe me, that's come up." Traditionally, I'm just skipping down a little bit because I'm going to go ahead. Traditionally, Holocaust denial has been fueled by the rawest and most erroneous sort of anti Semitism. There's no way of knowing if that particular brand of bigotry was a factor in this case. But my hunch is that Pretty was talking about the Holocaust partly as a way of not talking about the other controversial topics, such as slavery and racism. I added that last part. The question of what specific books and topics can and can't be taught is only part of what's so disturbing about HB 3979 and Petey's advice to the teachers. What's troubling is the idea that legislatures, rather than educators, should determine and impose limitations on a school curriculum. The problem is the way in which Petey and presumably others have interpreted the new law to mean that teachers and their pupils should ignore, that's an old word, pupils, should ignore the evidence of history. The students shouldn't be encouraged to distinguish between the actuality of what happened and what didn't. If teachers are obliged to tell their students that there is another point of view about whether the Holocaust occurred, must American history lessons now include books asserting that the United States was never a slave holding nation or that racism ended with the Emancipation Proclamation? If the discussion surrounding a novel or story leads a class to conclude that LGBTQIA plus people are entitled to basic human rights, must the class be asked to seriously consider the opposing view that these rights should be denied to anyone who differs from the heterosexual norm? The article continues to go on, but I feel like we got the gist of it.
I'm gonna say a little bit because I know you have a whole sugar spike waiting. So let me get mine out of the way. I already talked about this on my channel when we did the politics of it all, and we broke this down. And I'm sitting over here sipping my drink because now all of a sudden Jewish people and white people are all verklempt. Oh God, an opposing view to the Holocaust. But when they was talking about opposing views to slavery, y'all ain't have nothing for that. Y'all ain't have nothing for that. But now all of a sudden, oh no, you should have been like that when y'all were trying to tell people that slavery didn't happen. And y'all didn't have no smoke when it was just us black people having to endure it. So now I'm sitting back and looking like, oh, y'all voted on this. Y'all voted these people in power who put this in there. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if they rewriting our history, they could rewrite yours too. So when y'all ready to fix the problem, we'll be waiting. Go ahead, Really B.
So, why don't they just get rid of history, social studies? Just get rid of that shit. I mean, just get rid of it. Don't. Okay, because let me. Okay, because here's the reality is, I know again. I'll speak for my curriculum. Within my curriculum, we already teach fascism. We already teach about the Third Reich, and we teach about Hitler's regime, and we teach about the rise of the Nazi Party and that whole mindset. So that is the opposing view to the Holocaust. There is no opposing view to the Holocaust happening. There is no opposing view to the atrocities of what happened during the Holocaust. But the opposing view is how Hitler was able to convince a whole nation of people that this shit was okay. That is the opposing view, which is already included in the curriculum. So how sway? What are you talking about, people? And I agree with you 100%, El Teddy. This is the side effect. This is the what's the word I'm looking for? The friendly fire, the innocent bystander to what y'all want to do with critical race theory, which is supposed to be geared towards us, but now we got some stray bullets. Now we got the straight bullets hitting everybody else. So
That's
like
why I'm sitting over here like,
right. So like El Teddy said, when y'all ready to fix it,
mm-hmm.
I'll be over here waiting.
We'll be over here waiting.
Because when it was it was all fun and games when we was talking about slavery.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was all fun. Oh, that's their problem. That ain't our problem. Oh, but now, cause see, y'all couldn't write that in the legislation. They couldn't come out and just be blatantly racist and say only the black people we could
Only
discriminate.
the black issues.
You had to make it where it was palatable.
Black
So
stuff.
you had to say, well, you can't have only one viewpoint. So now, if I'm going by the letter of the law, we could do it to everybody.
Because let's be clear. Again, if I'm speaking from a historical mindset and I'm talking about my curriculum, we do teach the opposing view to slavery. Because do we not teach about slavery as a commerce? Do we not teach about slavery being part of the economy and slaves being 3/5 of a man? Do we not give that opposing view? Do we not give a pass to the George Washingtons of the world and the Thomas Jeffersons of the world, who were our founding fathers, but who also engaged in the practice of slavery? Do we not do that already? So there is the opposing view. Hello? It's already there. But when y'all figure out that when them bullets start hitting y'all,
Yep, because everybody getting hit now.
y'all come on over here to get triaged, okay?
Yeah, right. Don't look at it. Don't look at me to have no sympathy, because you have no sympathy for me. So I'm looking over here like,
Oh, I
come
don't have no,
stuff.
and don't get me wrong, as an educator, as a historian, all of it hurts me. Don't get me wrong, it all hurts me. The bullets hit me all the way across the board. But again, let me know when y'all ready to triage the situation. I'll be over here with my bandages.
We'll be over here ready. We'll be ready when y'all ready to have a real conversation.
Right.
Don't try and don't see, because see what they'll do is they'll put a little proviso in there to the law and say, oh, well, we're gonna just leave the Holocaust out of it. And they do stuff like that. They do stuff like that just so they can keep our black asses swept in with this foolishness.
Honey, y'all let me know. Y'all let me know when y'all ready to triage this situation. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to find the article on the principal. I don't see it. Do you have it handy or about the principal? I don't have it. I don't have it right in front of me. If you have it handy, let me know.
I don't have it handy.
Okay, let me try to Google it.
Wait, hold on. I might have. Hold on.
Did anyone else see the View clip from today on critical race theory in schools with Condoleezza Rice? No, but y'all know I watch the View every day, so I'll watch it. Zara, I will watch it because I haven't had a chance to watch anything. I've been running all day, but I will watch it, and we can talk about it on the next teacher project. We can bookmark it.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you, D. Mwah.
Hey, it's me, D. Yeah, I need, if you find that clip, really be send it to me. If it's a clip, because I don't watch the whole view. I have the article if you need it.
Okay. You want to send it to me, or you want to just go ahead and read it?
I'll read it. The article title says Texas principal calls students dressed for throwback day criminals who look like Dr. Dre from the 90s. Issues apology after backlash. Quote, I love you all. This article comes from Yahoo News. It says producer Dr. Dre may be going through a rough patch after having his ongoing divorce proceedings splattered across headlines, but a man in Texas just had what he described as the worst day as a school principal after allegedly comparing students, mainly black, to the award-winning rapper. The comment sparked outrage among parents who found the remark to be culturally insensitive. Oak Ridge High School principal Anthony Levici has issued an official apology after he was caught on videotape complaining about some of the students' attire choices for a 90s throwback day event at the school in Conroe, Texas, a suburb of Houston. It's embarrassing. It's frustrating. Lavici could be heard telling students, "We have people posing for pictures like they're Dr. Dre from the '90s. I'm not sure that's the look we're going for. It doesn't make our school look good." The incident reportedly took place on Thursday, September 30th, the same day the former NWA member was announced as one of many acts set to hit the stage at next year's Super Bowl halftime show. Lavici, still apparently upset by what he saw, reportedly went around the school telling people that it was his, quote, worst day being principal because of the way that students dressed, end quote. It's kind of downplaying on the way my mom and dad dressed when they were in school, one student added. Student athlete Trinidad Robinson, who runs track at the school, confirmed Baker's statement. I have some, and it goes on and on and on. You get the gist of it. That's all you need to know. My question is this, great state of Texas, and I'm going to let you go after my question really be. Since the great state of Texas is here and about just firing people for no reason. Remember, we just a couple weeks ago talked about the black principal and fired for no reason whatsoever because he took a picture with his wife. And because they accused him of teaching critical race theory when he doesn't teach anything. But he was wholly fired. This man who is doing culturally insensitive things, he's going to have a job tomorrow. I'm just saying, and I'm not saying either one of them should be fired, but what I'm saying is, if we're in the business of firing people for no reason, go ahead, really be. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I guess I'm confused. When you, it sounds like this was some sort of Spirit Week, situation for for homecoming. Every school does a Spirit Week, and you usually have some sort of Decades Day, and so it sounds like that's what was happening here. And so my question, let's just go to the beginning, and you know this, El Teddy, the principal has to sign off on these things. So when the
Exactly.
who's in charge of homecoming sent you what what they wanted to do for Spirit Week, and they sent you Decades Day, and they said, okay, on this day everybody's going to dress like the '90s, or usually what they do is the ninth graders have one decade, 10th graders have another decade, 11th graders, and so forth. So, having been someone who lived through the '90s, okay, I'm sure he has. He's a principal. What the hell did you think they was gonna dress up looking like?
But really, be if I was that principal, I would be glad because in the '90s we wore all baggy clothes. It wasn't like we was showing the whole. You know what I'm saying? In the '90s,
right?
We wore layers. We had layers in the '90s. So when students were dressed scantily clad or inappropriately, if they dress like the '90s, you should be glad. Like, okay, I see. I don't even see how this is a problem, except for the fact that you wanted to throw your little racist tirade in there. Let's be clear what this is. Let's be clear what this is all about.
Yeah, I mean,
because if they had dressed like the Backstreet Boys, then there wouldn't have been a problem.
That's what I'm saying. Like, did you think everybody was gonna come in there like a boy band? Is that what you thought? Everybody was gonna come in like Britney? Hell, even Britney Spears was showing cleavage, and I mean, listen. What did you like really? And for you to say they're all walking around dressed up like Dr. Dre. Now let's be clear. Unless they were throwing up gang signs.
How did you get Dr. Dre out of?
I mean, we know that, don't get me wrong. I mean, we know Dr. Dre got some questionable, things in his past, but out of all of the people, where you get Dr. Dre from? I mean, did they all have an NWA t-shirt?
Dr. Dre.
Like they couldn't have been Tupac. They couldn't have been Puffy. Like, where you get Dr. Dre from? Exactly, C. Golden. He had nothing better to do. And who were you dressed up as, sir?
Right.
Who were you dressed up as?
Make it make sense.
And
he's gonna say this is his worst day as a principal. Really?
Really? Really?
That is your worst day.
Listen, sir, listen. if that was my worst concern as an educator, or when I was an administrator, or the kids dressed up like Dr. Dre. I
That's your worst day? Wait a minute.
mean,
I mean, as a principal, you deal with all kinds of tragedies and untimely things that go on behind this. It's a whole lot of horrible things that happen in and out
listen,
of school. So you said your worst day is because the kids who they have said is mainly black decide to dress that way. Mm-hmm.
listen, let me tell you something. Working at a school, especially a high school, is equivalent to the army. We do more things before 10 a.m. than most people do all day. Remember that army commercial?
Mm-hmm.
mean, anyway, you guys. Well, listen, we give y'all a good solid hour. I want to thank y'all for coming through. Those of you that are here, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank everybody who participated in the chat again. If you are listening to this via a podcast, y'all come on over and subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Teacher Project 2.0. Hit that notification bell, and you can be a part of the conversation as well. We're always looking for educators who want to come up and join the conversation with us. Make sure you can. What's up, crackhead Willie?
Hey, crackhead Whitney.
You can email us again at the teacher project 2.0 at gmail.com. Please make sure that and let us know. We follow us on Instagram. Um and we're always looking for stories of interest. I'm going to check out the view, Zara, and I will let you know. We'll check back in
Yeah.
and see how that
And if
conversation,
you get
what
that
that
clip,
looks
you
like.
send it to me because I'm curious to see.
Well,
We
you
were
know,
just
I'll let
talking
you know.
about Conley. What we
You know
just
how I
talking
feel
about
about,
her?
yeah, because you know, we had a conversation the other day about Condi.
Right. We were
So
just talking about
we were
Condi.
just talking about Condi. But thank you guys for being here. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It is free 99. And I will turn the rest over to Dr. El Teddy.
Listen, um, sugar spikes notwithstanding, because really we had a whole sugar spike today. It wasn't just me, but it was not just me. But we absolutely love doing this. That's why I be on top of her. I call her like 4 times today,
He
y'all.
does. He is. He
And
is.
I said, hey, I call her sometimes just so like I told her so she can see my number on her phone, so she could be reminded and cuss me out and stuff. But
Stop telling people I
y'all,
cuss you
please,
out. I
like
don't be
you
cussing
said,
you out.
I love what you put out that the T Lounge put that she needs to go talk to her local school board people. We're always here for that. And if you all have topics or if something is going on in your local area that you want us to bring light to and attention to, please let us know, because a lot of times these things don't happen in a vacuum. It may be happening in another area or may be about to happen in another area. And so that can empower people to get in front of something before it gets too bad. Um, Hopefully things will start to get better, but I ain't going I ain't gonna wager a bet on that. Anyway, thank y'all for being here. Always like, share, subscribe. Oh, that gave me a bad taste in my mouth. Like and share and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you all over here. Shouts out to the people who listen to the podcast. We love y'all too. Shouts out to y'all. If y'all send us an email, we'll read your email. Send us an email or DM on Instagram, and we'll read your little comments on. We might have a little segment where we read your little comments from the podcast, came from the podcast and stuff. All
Um,
right, that's all I got. Really, be.
that is it. Oh, and I'll be on my main channel in about 30 minutes. We're going to talk about Queens, which debuted last night. We're going to talk about it live. So y'all come on over there and join me over there. Go take you a little break, get you some snacks, and meet me back in my main channel. Okay? All right. Peace. I want to